In today's lesson, we're going to look at creating a timer. So what's going to happen is when we play our game, we will start a timer, and then when we end the game, we stop the timer. Okay, so let's just see this in action quickly. So you'll see at 13.12 milliseconds, or sorry, 13 seconds, 0.12 milliseconds, what's happening is our time is stopped. But as you can see, as the game is playing, we were counting up in time. Now, an extension to this, and you can do this as an extension task, is once we've finished this, you guys can look up kind of making a high score or fastest time. So this draws back players back to the game because it's who can complete the level in the fastest time. So you're adding a little bit more of a challenge then to your game, and you're adding replayability too. So what we'll look at first is creating the actual the UI, or the user interface. So remember, UI is user interface. So we'll make that first, and then once you guys have done that, you can, as an extension task, create a high score. The videos for that process will be on the Moodle page, but what I want you guys to do first is think about how you would do it. There are some hints and tips on the Moodle page, but then once you created it, watch the video and then see how it's actually made, okay? How it's made properly. So before we do that, what you guys need to do is actually make the timer first. Now the timer has a couple of elements to it. Firstly, you have what we call a canvas. So if I hide this, you'll see that the text has gone, and hide it, we have a canvas again. So I'm actually going to make this really quickly from scratch. So we'll delete that. I should delete that as well. So create empty. And we'll, sorry, not create empty. Right click, UI, and then text. So right click in hierarchy, UI, legacy, text. Okay, it automatically creates a canvas for you then. Hit F2 to rename this canvas text to timer text. What I'm also going to do is enable some buttons. So key. So yeah, so now the keys appear on the bottom for you. So we've got timer text. At the minute, it looks like it's in the distance. It's a bit small. So what you would do is you can put some kind of like preview text in here. So our preview text, for example, is going to be 0.00 or 0.00. And then we can make this bigger by increasing the font size. But look, I've gone too big now, and now I've lost my timer. So in order to actually reveal the timer again, you can come to the width and height here of your rectangle transform and just increase the width and increase the height. So I'm going to do 200 on the width and 100 on the height. I'm going to center this, so the alignment in the paragraph center, and then we've got here what we call the anchor points. Okay, so click this anchor point, and then we can anchor it to the top left corner, so over here of our screen. So you have several anchor points. You have a top, a middle, and a bottom. At the minute, we'll anchor it to the middle. I can anchor it to the top left, and you'll notice that my position X and my position on the Y have changed. If I go 0, 0, it's now right at the very top of the screen. If I go to my scene view and click F on this text, you'll see it here. So this Y outline here is the canvas, and here's my text. So I put my game view and my scene view side by side, and I grab the anchor point's here and I move it down, you'll see it's just creeping in there. And then I move it along. About there will be perfect. Okay. Put that back, we look at the bigger view and it's there. So that's setting up our initial text. If you click on canvas as well, what we've got is render mode, and at the minute it's set to screen space overlay. That's fine. You've also got the UI scale mode. At the minute it's set to constant pixel size. You've got to remember that screen sizes change, so depending on what you're playing on. If you're playing on desktop, you want it to size to a desktop. If you're playing on a phone, you want it to size to your phone. So to do that, hit the UI scale mode and hit scale with size. And now, no matter how big our screen gets, this will scale. So if I move, go smaller, 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 the text size will scale with how big our screen is, which is perfect, exactly how we want it. Okay, so that is the text itself. Then we need to create another element to this, which is a UI, so a user interface manager. So right click, empty game object, UI manager. This doesn't do anything at the minute until I drop our UI manager script onto it. Okay, so we've got a UI manager script. I'm just going to drop that on, and now we can do something. So now we can add a reference to our on-screen text. So if I grab that and just drag it onto here, we've now got a reference to the on-screen text. If I grab the player, I can just drag it over and plonk it in there. Okay, so what's this doing? The UI manager is managing the user interface. It has one script, and all that does is manage how to display this. That's the whole purpose of a UI manager. It's the same as a game manager. Some games will have, well, all games should have a game manager, but the game manager will handle things like score, lives, and particular things along them lines. The UI manager will obviously manage the UI. So let's have a quick guard at the scripts. So here is our UI manager script. So here's what's happening. Firstly, something new we've added here is using unity.ui. So all we're doing here is we're making reference to all the classes that is held within the UI Unity engine.ui. So we just inherit them classes, and it's things like text, image, sliders. So we can make a reference to them. And then in our actual script itself, we are making a serialized field. So remember, serialized field allows us to edit something within the inspector, and what we're going to edit is the text, and all we're doing is we're making a reference to that text variable, and it's called on-screen timer. Then what we're making a reference to is the game object. Now this is set to private, and it's just the game object of the player. So next what we're going to do is we're going to say our player is equal to the game object dot find character. So all that's going to happen is we're going to find the character game object, which is this. Yeah, so that's all we do. We just make a reference to this. It's finding this and it's storing it in that variable player. Then we say, okay, on-screen timer dot text, so the text of the actual text variable, so that's why it's dot text, is equal to our player, and then what we're doing is going to get a component off that player, which we call timer. So that's a script, which you'll see in a minute. So that's the script timer, and then you're saying access the variable time on that script, and then convert that to a string. Okay, so if we open up the timer text, you'll see here's the timer. So it's a public float timer. So we made this serialized field public. The reason we make it public is so it's accessible on this script here. So remember what I said in the last lesson. If you want to make some variable editable on other script or accessible via other scripts, you won't make it public. Okay, so on the timer text, we have a serialized field which is a float, which is the time. So this is the time that we're going to use to count upwards. Then we have a boolean which is called time running, and all that's doing is counting up how much the time is running. And then what else we've got is the start function. Now this is actually the timer with the added high score. So let's not confuse ourselves, and let's actually go to the original script, the script that you guys will have. Let me open that for you. Let's find it. So here we go. Right, so we have the timer text as we've already referenced. We have the final time, and we have a boolean which is timer running. So we have a check to see is the timer running. Okay. What we're doing is we're saying if the timer is running, then the time, so this float here is equal to time dot down to time. So we're just increasing the time in seconds. On void trigger enter collider ever, so if we collide with an object, and I'll show you which objects we'll make in a minute, and that object is tagged as start, the timer is running is set to true. So then what happens is, if the timer is running is set to true, this timer starts counting upwards. So this variable here will start counting upwards. If the timer, if the object that we collide with is tagged as end, what's then going to happen is we set the final time to time. So whatever our final time is, that is going to be our time. Then the timer running is false, so what happens is we stop counting up in time. Okay, and then the UI manager script obviously displays this on the screen. Okay, so one last time to break that down for you. What's happening is on the UI manager we're getting reference to the on-screen text timer, and then we're also getting reference to our player. The on-screen timer text is getting from the player a component which is a script called timer. It's accessing this variable which is called time, and then it's saying convert that time, to convert that float to the string. So convert the time float to a string and display that on the screen, which is exactly what's happening here. So the other element we have is our start cube and our end cube. So we have a start platform and an end platform. All we've done is we've made a box collider on this start platform and extended the box slider just slightly so it's covering our player, and we're tagging it. So remember how we do tags? We hit add tag, give the tag a name, and then hit back on our platform, drop down, and then select the tag we want. In this case it's start. So this is now tagged at start. So when we start our game in this field here, the time is going to count up. Once we made all the way over to here, we have this cube here which has the exact same collider on, but this time it's tagged as end. So when we start, we run this. When we end, we run this. So when we start, we set the timer as running to true, and when we end, we make sure that the final time is equal to our current time, and then the timer running is not false, so the timer stops dead as it is. Okay, I hope that makes some sense for you. It's quite a pretty simple process to do, but all your guys' task now to do is to create these cubes and add a collider to them and tag them as start and end. Add your scripts to these platforms, sorry, not to the platforms, to the UI manager, and also drag the timer script onto the character. Okay, to drag the timer script onto the character and drag the UI manager script onto the UI manager, and then you should be well away. Okay, and just in the UI manager, just make sure you're dragging your variables across. Okay, again, when we hit play, we counter. If I click on the character, you can see here in the script the timer is actually counting up. Again, as an extension to this, is you can think of a way to make a high score. Now here's the hint for that. You have the final time. So you must be able to take this final time and store it. Make a reference to this final time. Okay? And then you display this final time on your screen using the UI that we've already created. I will give you a hint. Look on the Unity scripting API, the documentation. Look for something called player prefs. Okay, so player prefs. Look for that. That will give you a big hint on how to actually create this high score system. Have a go. Look on the Moodle page. There's some more hints and tips on there, and then there will be a video explaining how to actually make the high score. Okay, wonderful guys. Thank you.